Hello, welcome back. It's me again, obviously. Today I'm going to have a bit of a rant, actually, well, a bit of a whinge about people who whinge, um, specifically about a particular topic. Um, so bear with me, and I apologise in advance if I insult or offend anyone, but I may go off the handle at some stage. Um, there are lots of people who talk about enterprise in enterprise, that being the ship itself, and the design of the ship, and talk about how it looks like the Akira class that was introduced during Deep Space Nine. Now, looking at an overhead view of both ships, there are some similarities. Yes, there is a degree of similarity in placement of various elements, and so on and so forth, and a few minor details that are similar broadly. But the way people seem to talk about it, it's as if people are thinking that it's exactly the same ship, which it's not. Now, if you look at NX-01 in any other direction, profile from the bow, from the stern, even from the bottom, port or starboard profiles, it looks completely and utterly different. Completely and utterly different. There is no similarity between the two, whatever. Now, to hear some people talking about this, it's like they're looking at the same ship, but instead of having, USS Thunderchild, NCC, whatever, it's like they're looking at NX-01. Now, if these people are seeing exactly the same ship completely, then they need a new pair of these, frankly, because the ships bear absolutely no relationship to each other, whatever. Now, people bring up this, this idea that, how can you have a ship that's 200 years more than probably in the future being designed and copied off something that was all the way, back before the Federation? Well, I'd point out that pretty much every single USS Enterprise 1701 add a letter is pretty much exactly the same as all the ones that have gone before. It's just the details have been changed. You got a saucer, an engineering hull, and two nacelles. Every single one of them. Now, are we going to start claiming that all of these vessels are exactly the same, that they've copied the design? Well, in actual fact, they have. They've done that on purpose, so that there is a familiarity between each enterprise. That's been done on purpose. Now, nobody whinges and complains and carries on and says, "Ooh, they can't do that," because they do, and it's the Enterprise and everyone likes it. Suddenly we've got this other ship that has similarity in one, I repeat again, one particular viewpoint, and everyone jumps up and down and carries on and says, "Oh, you can't do that?" No, sorry, doesn't work. Go away and think up a reasonable excuse as to why you don't like it. Now, if you're going to whinge and say that you can't do it because it's using the same sort of, design, well, these starships are supposed to be operating in the real world. Okay? They're supposed to be out there living in this real world. Now, if they're doing that, a ship in the 24th century is going to have to deal with exactly the same sorts of things as a ship in the 22nd century. Things like gravity, things like energy phenomena, and things like, dust particles in space, magnetic fields, all of these subspace fields, all of these things. Now, a ship that is designed to operate in the 22nd century and use a matter-antimatter drive as its main propulsion is going to have a lot of similarities to a ship built in the 24th century, which is using a matter-antimatter drive as its main propulsion. you kind of get where I'm coming at? They're both operating in the same universe, using the same rules, using the same basic technology. Why on Earth or on space wouldn't they have a great deal of similarities? Every single Federation ship that we've ever seen has similarities to every other Federation starship that we've ever seen, because they're meant to be a similar, they're meant to be a product of the same mindset, the same technology. So they're obviously going to have similarities. Now, this idea that somehow you can't have Enterprise and Kira looking similar from once again one perspective is utterly and utterly redonkulous. It does not make any sense whatsoever. All of the people who are saying that need to go away and just take a gigantic chill pill, because they're completely and utterly wrong. I'm sorry to sound horrible about that, but they are. These two ships, yes, okay, they're separated by 200 odd years, and they do have a similarity in perspective from one point of view, but they're meant to be operating in the same universe, using the same technology, using the same, encountering the same phenomena. There's got to be a similarity, otherwise it doesn't make sense. Now, if the Akira class was using a completely different type of, faster than light propulsion, just for argument's sake, say it was a soliton wave that we talked about in the next gen episode. Now, yes, that would make sense if there was a completely different design. That would be completely understandable. It's using a completely different technology, so it has to look. It would probably look. No, there might be a saucer section. That's just what Federation starships do. But there wouldn't be nacelles. There'd be some sort of other weird little engineering thing that generates a soliton wave. That would make sense, but they're not. They're both using the same technology. Okay, the Akira class might be a slightly better warp drive. That's fair enough. That happens over time. It might be bigger, which it is. It might be faster, which it is. It might have more power, which it does. But it's still basically matter, antimatter, dilithium crystal, zap, plasma. Oh, look, faster than light. They're both exactly the same. They've got to have a similarity. Now, that, a sailing ship which is built today is going to be very, very similar to a sailing ship which was built 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, for crying out loud. It's got a hull, which is pointy at one end, flat at the other, a bunch of sticks sticking up with sails on it. That's basically all a sailing ship is. Now, you can have one mast, you can have 12 masts, which have got sails on it. But it's basically just a big block with pointy at one end, flat at the other, with sticks and sails on it. That's all a sailing ship is. Now, you can alter the number of decks, as I said, you can make it longer, you can make it wider, you can change the number of masts, but they're all pretty much exactly the same. Now, you look at a fancy yacht that's built, today, just a picture of it, say a single-masted yacht, it's going to be pretty damn similar to a single-masted yacht that's built 100 years ago. I mean, look at the Olympics. They use pretty much exactly they have to, for the competition, use the same sorts of yachts in every single competition, and they've been doing that since yachting, first popped into the Olympics, goodness knows when. Now, if that's because it's a sailing ship, it's got to operate in the real world. It's moving through water, so it needs a pointy front. It uses the wind to propel it, so it has to have sails. Oh, what's the best way to put those sails up? You put a big pointy stick on the top of it. Now, theoretically, generally speaking, the more pointy sticks with sails on it, the faster you can potentially go, depending on the wind, of course. But if you want a ship that's really, really, really fast, you can either make the hull really, really skinny and really, really thin, which cuts down on your drag, which means that the more wind you've got, the faster you go. Or if you need a big, wide, deep, heavy hull for some reason, say you've got to carry a lot of cargo, you need a lot of guns, whatever it might be, you have a lot of sails to essentially try and achieve the same outcome. Now, no one jumps up and down and whinges and carries on and says, "Ooh, you can't have a sailing ship that has a pointy front and a flat back and a sticks with sails on it. Oh no, that's horrible. They did that 100 years ago. You can't do that." Everyone just accepts that as being, it's a sailing ship. Get over it. That's what sailing ships are. This is the same thing. Why are people so unable to get that very simple concept? Okay, the ships may look the same from one perspective, But you look at it from the side, they're two completely and utterly different ships that you cannot possibly confuse for the other. And anyone who does seriously needs a new pair of these. Anyone who looks at it from the front or the back, again, seriously needs a new pair of these. These people who are jumping up and down and saying, oh, they look exactly the same, you are wrong. I'm sorry to sound like I'm, the God Almighty of Star Trek, but common sense tells you that if these ships are using the same sort of engine, flying in the same, space, they've got to have some similarities. Okay, now you might want to argue about, oh, why would you put, a circular hull with things coming off it, with nacelles coming off that? Well, the same argument can be made about, as I said before, the Enterprises. Why do you have to have a saucer, an engineering hull, and two nacelles every single time, again and again and again and again? And it's not just, the Excelsior class was introduced with exactly the same thing: saucer, engineering hull, two nacelles, and it wasn't originally intended to have an Enterprise in it, but they stuck one in later on because it made sense. Every single ship that we see is basically just a modification of the original Enterprise, because that was the design that they came up with. Now, I just find it utterly maddening that people jump up and down because of one perspective. I mean, okay, it might be a perspective that's used a lot, okay, and if you're not sort of paying attention and you don't happen to have your glasses on at the time, you might have to look again, okay? That might be an argument that you could make. But from every other perspective, it looks absolutely nothing like the Akira class. So why are people whinging about this? I just don't understand that. I don't get why people can whinge and carry on about something like that. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, I mean, people can whinge about, placement of certain things, like, nacelles and stuff, as I said before. But, every ship that has a Federation-style warp drive has nacelles. They're long, they're skinny, they're pointy, they sit outside, they stick off the hull in some way, shape, or form. That's nothing unusual or weird. Oh, people whinge and carry on and say, oh, the bridge is in exactly the same place as on the Akira class. Well, where else are they going to stick the bridge? Every single Federation ship that we've pretty much ever seen has had the bridge module in the center of the saucer bit, without deviation, every single one of them. So why on earth would they do anything different when it came to the Akira class? They got a saucer, oh, let's stick the bridge in the middle. That's where we stick them all. Makes perfect sense to me. I don't know why it doesn't make sense to anybody else. Maybe I'm just being a little bit bitchy, but I don't really care, to be honest. That's just the way I see it. I don't understand. I think, personally, it's just people have decided that they didn't like this idea of a ship, of a storyline being, 100 years before Kirk, or more than 100 years, and so they've jumped up and down and just jumped on any little thing that they can possibly jump on to criticize and bag the show. As the person who inspired this, basically, I think, was alluding to, Techran, hi, this is a good show. There's some good stories in there. Why are people not focusing on that? Every single series of Trek has some bad stories, has some details that don't stand up to scrutiny, has some characters that we all wish weren't in it, has some, situations that we wish weren't in it. Every single one of them. There are episodes of Next Gen that we all sort of sit there and think, probably really shouldn't have been made, that episode, but they made it and it's a part of the show. Yet there are other episodes that you sit there and you say, that is a brilliant piece of drama. Why isn't there more of this on TV? It's a perfectly legitimate thing to say that I wholeheartedly agree with, I point out. Nothing is perfect. To say that Enterprise has to have been perfect because there was all this other stuff before it is just dumb, frankly. Jumping on every single little thing just to nitpick. As I said, there's things in Voyager, there's things in Deep Space Nine, there's things in Next Gen, there's things in the movies, there's things in original series that don't make sense, that don't work, that look stupid. And yet they're there, and we accept them. why are we not doing the same? Why are we not upholding the same standard with enterprise? I don't get that. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. But anyway, okay. Since I've used up a quarter of an hour of your time that you probably want to use on something else, I will go away. That's the end of my rant for now. I don't know what I'm going to talk about next time. I may not even talk about enterprise. I am thinking about talking about some other things to do with other series. We'll see where we get to. I hope I didn't piss you all off too much. And yeah, I'll talk to you next time. Thank you for listening. Good night.